and figure out some working together some, and there's some stuff that's already kind of rolling that we wanted to figure out how coordinated we want to be about. And we wanted to start with just getting everyone together and really making contact with each other. The system that we live in, the economic system, and partially now the political system, works to keep us separate from each other, and works to keep us sort of keeping each other compliant. And even though we're working against that now, it comes up a lot. Staying isolated from each other, and it's hard to work together. It's I think it's one of the most rebellious things that's happening is people really trying to work together. But you come up against a lot of stuff when you try to work together. And I think that's especially true in northern New England, which is where we are. So trying to keep making contact and keep going toward being together might be some of the hardest work we do, especially this winter. Something about winter that just makes you kind of dig in and close down. So this is just fabulous that there are this many of us here today, and that we're going to spend some time working together and figuring out how to stay connected. And all kinds of stuff will come up in ourselves and between us that will tend to make us isolate again. So anything we can do to not isolate into individuals or into smaller groups, that's the work. And it looks like small work, but it's really the work that gets the system to move differently, and that's what we want. So the first thing to do to make contact is to keep conversations going that were already happening, but we'll be a little more structured this time. We'll get in groups of about 8 people and introduce yourselves and tell each other why you're involved in Occupy. So try to get in groups with people you don't know, or people from other towns or other groups, so that we get to know each other. And you may have to, some people might have to go out in the hall so that it doesn't get so loud that you can't hear each other. And we'll take about 10 minutes. Locally, but be together. So that seems like one thing. It also seems like there's some direct action stuff already planned, so that seems like we ought to talk about that. What else needs to get talked about in the General Assembly?
The primary.
Okay,
that's the end of the...
I think we'll be able to yes.
My question is, and it's going to be an agenda item, how do you structure a so-called GA for the statewide GA that doesn't supersede or replace the individual GA? It's my thought that it should only be a support function, and it should never be anything more than a fill that category.
I think that's part of that first conversation with the, like, stay connected, but
No, but you've got structure.
Right, sure.
A GA,
Yeah.
it can't be just everybody coming together forming consensus. That doesn't work.
So-
Every separate group has to have a recognition.
So we'll put it on the list to be added to the agenda, and then when we discuss it, we'll create a stack so that everybody can have a...
And I said there are a bunch of direct actions, but then someone suggested primary, so maybe we'll break out all the direct actions individually.
The legislature.
Not an exclusive, but a general primary message.
Like focus.
A focus, a primary focus. What is the primary focus of Occupy?
So by primary, you don't mean the...
Well, for instance,
You're not talking about the presidential primary.
No!
You're talking about a different primary.
I'm talking about a message, i.e., for instance, getting money out of politics. Is that
Got it, all right.
what we're going to focus on? Not excluding anything else, but
Right, okay.
So would you say
Wait,
a priority message or a common message? How would you describe that?
Declaration of occupation.
Common statewide message.
Can you say it again?
Declaration of occupation, that's what someone...
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, what do you do?
The need for nonviolent, training in nonviolence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
We're all nonviolent.
Yeah.
I would hope. You need to be trained to do it right.
We need to train on how to...
And that is available, just to let you know.
Interest,
Yes.
point of information.
We should probably go over the hand signals again, just for anybody who doesn't
Okay, thank you.
by now.
Yeah.
Especially for students.
So this is like,
I need someone else to do that, because I can follow, but I'm not clear about doing that. Can you come on?
I'll step up.
Yeah.
Anyone else can, if you want.
my name is Wyatt, I'm part of Occupy Manchester. So people like to call these happy hands, or twinkles, I guess. They mean that you agree.
Sparkle fingers.
Sparkle fingers.
Spirit fingers.
This means you're kind of, not so on it. You don't disagree, but you're kind of so-so. And this means you disagree. And I always mess these up, but this is a question. Clarify, yep. You have like point information, something you want to inform, whatever people are talking about. You have, I'm trying to remember, this is point of process. It is that, this is point of process.
It varies.
Yeah, there's like some different point of processes that you're trying to get people back on track, make sure you're not kind of like going on to something else. I'm trying to remember what, there's one more at least.
There's also a block.
Yeah, block is that you don't want to, this is something so important that you could possibly leave the movement. They're very rare.
And then another one is
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Oh, really? I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, if somebody's
Louder
talking,
and-
you can't hear them louder. If they're too loud.
Oh, soft.
Oh yeah, direct response. Yeah. And then there's like stand aside.
What's direct response?
What's a signal?
This is direct response.
Direct response. Meaning you're going to reply to exactly what someone said.
Point of process, it's not, I'm sorry, point of information is not to change the subject or to go off on a long speech. It's a simple bullet point to interject a fact.
Well, that's usually point of information. Information with point of process.
That's what I meant, point of,
Yeah.
that's better.
Okay. There's another one. It's called like stand aside. Like I don't think it's a universal signal for it.
Not yet.
Not yet. There's like a couple of them. Like I like this one. That you'll stand aside. This. Alright. It means like you're not rejecting it, but you're not going to be involved with that.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely. I think that's it.
You won't block.
Yeah, you're not blocking it. You're not going to be involved. Well, this is kind of like you're so on it, but this is more activity. Like you're not going to be a part of it.
You're actively not participating.
But you're not blocking it. You're not saying against it.
Question?
I've got a clarifying question. When somebody disagrees, is there a degree of disagreement? I know block means, I understand that block means I cannot participate in this if it's presented the way it's being presented. I actually thought that that's what disagree was, but I'm clearly mistaken on that. Could you just clarify that point for me, please?
For me personally, the more someone does this, the more they agree. I know someone just a few minutes ago was doing this constantly, so I have the feeling they really disagree with what is being said. That's just what I thought.
The difference between dislike and blocking something or standing aside is that if it's just discussion, if we're talking, then and you disagree, you do this. But if it's a proposal that we're going to vote on, something that's actually going to happen, or a message that we're actually going to present, if it's a formal proposal, then that's when blocking comes into it.
Thank you.
They're very rare, but they have happened before.
Point of information.
Yeah, that's it.
As a point of information, the block is really, you're trying to think of it from the perspective of the movement itself. So it's more than simply a very strong disagreement on a personal level with what's being discussed. You're looking at it saying, I think whatever is being proposed is going to fundamentally undermine the movement. So it's a really strong censure. No, this is a block, and that's a strong censure. It doesn't mean you just simply disagree or even strongly disagree. It means that from the perspective of the movement itself, you think it will undermine the movement.
Usually we'll just stop right there and start talking to the person. Of course, we don't want anybody to leave.
Point of information, or a question, I'm not sure which one. Can somebody just explain briefly how a stack works and the importance of getting on stack if you have something to say, as opposed to saying it somehow with hand motion?
If there's well, I can kind of explain it. If there's like a topic, you can come on stack and write your name down because you want to say something. And then if like middle of a conversation, you want to reply to someone, then you'll say that. But if you have like your own thing you want to say, because try to keep things a little organized, so we don't want to go everyone going off a tangent.
Do you follow progressive stack?
No. Well, I mean, I think we encourage that if you talk, you should kind of let other people talk, but it's kind of up in the air, really. Okay. I think that's it.
Thanks, that was helpful.
Is this
All right.
Most diverse in Oregon, but not.
So we'll go back to just getting the things that we want to make sure are on the agenda, and then we'll start to go through those, work through them in conversation.
I'd like as an agenda that, in the context of planning for the primary, we're kind of condensed in time, and so I would like that at some point today that everyone as a group decide within a short time frame when we'll have our next our meeting statewide. I think that'd be really important to see how we've made progress, where, when, and we'll meet about.
Another hand back there.
Can we get the issue of just general transparency for the movement on?
Can you tell me what you mean by transparency?
Well, I think we need clarity around who are administrators of various pages, who has the ability to do what, who has the ability to, for instance, call a group like this together and set that tone. So I think we should talk about that.
Okay. I saw a hand down here first, and I'll come back there.
I think it would be good, because New Hampshire doesn't have any physical occupations, if we could put together some work groups here while we're here today, because the groups individually are much smaller than we are collectively, and collectively I think we could probably put together some more functional work groups. So if we can maybe discuss that a little bit.
I think we should start talking about planning for state elections, replacing some legislators.
Yes.
I think we're running astray. We haven't established what this GA is all about, and we're bringing in items on an agenda that would normally be at the local GAs. You have to have the clarity of what we're really trying to do today. It's going to be a mammoth task, and we still won't have enough hours to do that.
Right. There's not a chance we'll work through all this, but it might be good to collect all the ideas and then start at the top of the list.
Yeah, but
does that make sense?
The list is actually destructive, because you're trying to talk about everything, and you really have to concentrate on what this purpose is. We're not here to talk about actions we want to take. We're talking about forming a GA that's going to serve the needs of all the local GAs. And it's very different from the local GA.
I just to clarify, I think we're here to decide what we want to talk about. So I don't think that there's any any set thing that we can or cannot talk about today. That would be my preference as the host of this meeting. But I would like the group to continue to propose items that they would possibly like to talk about today.
I like to talk about some of the resources that we already have, whether it be in TV and media, and radio, our websites. I'd like everybody to know about everything that we have, the resources for everybody, and to get out to anybody.
I don't know function of the state GA. I don't know if this fits with that. I think it's different. I'm interested in making a decision today about what the structure looks like for individual occupations around the state and some type of state collaboration and a little more definition. It sort of gets to some, I think, of what Sean was talking about in terms of transparency, whose roles are what, how are decisions made, and a little bit maybe of what Bob was talking about.
I think this would be a good opportunity to talk about what the different occupations are doing, areas of successes, failures, and see how we can support one another and learn from one another.
That one's twinkling. I'll come back to you just a second. Yes.
We should probably at some point at least have some means of letting everybody know that we are trying to network also online, so that a lot of these individual issues can be brought together in, discussing what individuals can do to facilitate the furthering of the movement statewide, so that, yeah, we can do some things here at this meeting, but as a general practice, consistent interaction with the rest of the communities through some form of online or through your local group who then can participate online with the rest of the communities statewide to facilitate actions and movements all over. If we can indicate to people that we have a few locations and you can all go to those locations and participate in some aspect of doing this statewide. So it's not, we don't walk out of here and we're all cut off from each other again. I think that would be an important thing to
Had a direct response. I think that's a great idea, actually. I think having a statewide GA like this can make some people feel eventually like they can't do anything because they're not present at this meeting right now. So I think we need to make sure that people everywhere throughout the state feel like they can have a part and they can play a role. Because this is about making them know that they have the ability to help us change things and to help themselves change things.
Yep. There was a hand back.
I just have a question. What is the primary purpose of That's the thing, right? What do you want to answer that? I got something to add. For that. How do we regain control over the monopolizing dictatorship entities of the corporational system?
Assassinated in the state.
Overthrow Citizens United.
28.
Move to amend.
Can I, what's the direct response? Hand signal? Direct response. There are some specifics that have been talked about in the Reinstitute. Reinstitute of the Glass-Steagall Act is one that's would be good to become informed about. It was the act that kept investment banks and commercial banks separate since the Depression. And when Clinton removed that, your bank could then invest in Wall Street, and has led directly to some of the situations that we're in today.
Basically, I think what we need to keep in mind here is we talk about changing individual policies, but I think the most important thing to keep in mind is when you're dealing with interconnection of communities of people trying to make grassroots changes, what's more important as a movement is to empower and enable people to make changes for themselves. One of the resources of having networking on this scale is the ability for us to say, you know what, I want to change Glass-Steagall policies that are currently, you know, a problem for us. Okay, maybe you don't all agree with that, but out of this many people here, there may be 25 who can back me up into something we want to do together to make that change. It's not about what this whole thing says we all should do. It's about enabling us all to interact with each other and achieve change on multiple levels all around.
Yeah.
I think we'll, I've noticed that we've gotten to the bottom of the sheet of paper and that we have I think we have an hour and 35 minutes, and there are 1,000 things to do, for sure. It looks to me like maybe we should start at the top of this list, because it looks like those first few things might be the
issues.
Temperature check.
Yeah, it'd take maybe 5 minutes to do, and then we could prioritize it from
You can actually
that.
you can come to consensus on the different items to discuss what order they go in.
Yeah,
Yep.
that bottom one
Temperature
looks like
check.
number
Yeah.
one to me.
Oh, I sort of thought.
It feels like the first one too, so that's
Yeah, they-
Actually, that's what my hand
So,
was up for, a version of that.
How-
That says it even better.
How do you do you
You read it and people either do this, or this.
Okay, and you sort of whittle down by the amount of people that
Right,
are
right.
positively responding to each item.
all right, so we'll, yes.
One thing, maybe we should ask, like, if we can get a hand showing of how many people might be willing to stay late. Obviously, a lot of people might want to get out, but if there are people who are going to stay
Okay.
late,
Is that
and
an
you have the
option?
space, we're on here, we drove.
We would like to, no, I actually need to get out of here by 4,
you
and
do?
I have to
Okay,
lock
sorry.
the door. So I apologize, I have a family obligation. So, but we can use this space again. So, so we do need to wrap this up by 3:30.
So then we need to focus on the things that everybody thinks is the most, like maybe the 2 or 3 things that everybody thinks are the most important.
Yeah.
We don't have to split into groups of areas or something like that.
Well, first we have to agree on what we're
Yeah,
going
we're going to figure out which things we're going to talk about.
Can I make a suggestion, so you get a temperature check on this first? It seems to me that we have sort of 2 areas on the list. One is organizational for the statewide versus, and then the others are actions. So I'm wondering if we can agree that as we go through the list, those that are organizational go to the top, because if we get the organizational straightened out, it's easier to address the action. And then the action ones we agree on go to toward the end.
So we sort of did a temperature check on that, but let's officially do a temperature check on that we're going to agree to work on organizational stuff first and then work on direct actions after that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. That looked like a yes.
Yeah, so does anybody want to kind of help me straighten these out? I think primary action, obviously that's an action. Would you say the need for nonviolence training is also a technical action? Okay.
You want to put little A's next to A's and O's.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Declaration of occupation, is that? That's an action.
For sure.
Set a date.
O is O.
Operating transparency, work groups, state elections, and yeah.
Yeah, resources online.
Yeah.
Collaboration on structure of local activities.
Okay.
We don't know what we're voting on. Can you read them out loud?
Yep, so we just, the last one we did, state elections and legislation, we agreed was an action. Resources on online media, coordinating those, I think, is what the idea was. That seems like an organizing issue. If anybody disagrees, please let me know. Collaboration of structure of local activities. People were saying they felt that was an action. What's working and what's not at the local level. Is that an action, or is that? How many people?
We'll have to vote on that because.
All right. How many people think that sharing what's working and what's not at the local level is?
You could split that into 2. One would be what's working and what's not organizationally, what's working, what's not action-wise.
Okay, so.
I would think the people that have been part of Occupy before could help us with that line.
Okay, so.
Let's give it a circle A.
Yeah.
Circle A.
Okay. Plan for systems of inclusion. Oh, okay.
plan for systems of improvement.
Include the work groups and the resource online media, are those two related?
Not necessarily.
Related at some point.
Does it seem like it's not, I mean, it seems like it could be. So we've got this. Do we want to winnow it down to 3 or 4 items that we really want to address today?
Should we try to choose 3 or 4?
How many goals are there?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're probably not going to make it.
Well, we could probably do the date for the statewide GA. It shouldn't take too long to do that.
Advise us on the rest of whether we should even be working on them or not.
Can we see a show of hands on putting the function of the state GA at the top of the list for the agenda?
Did somebody explain what the state GA is?
Well, that's what
You're in it.
Can someone give just a quick sort of description of what's been happening before and why what's happening right now is different from what was happening, say, last week?
I kind of like sent out a lot of
Right.
I sent out a lot of event page and everything, and you know the idea of this is that you know we have a group and we met with people throughout New Hampshire, and we said we're going to call this Occupy New Hampshire, and we came from all over the state, but we met in Manchester, and then within the last 5-6 weeks there's been basically Occupies popped up all over the state. And so this is really just the first attempt so that we can bring everyone together, because, you know, the Manchester group that meets in Manchester every Sunday, we've been going throughout the state. And you can see that's like a hub and spoke. Manchester connects to Conway, Manchester connects to Keene, Manchester connects to Occupy Conway. This is the first chance ever that Occupy Conway and Dover can connect, and Occupy UNH and Occupy Concord connect, and all the different groups. So I think that the function really today of this state GA is to get as many numbers as you can in contacts and to work organizationally so that the next meeting like this will be much more of a collaborative process. You'll know much more in advance what you want to talk about.
What about in terms of, I guess, when I say C function, I think about like voting, like what decisions are you planning on making in this group? Because I mean, we can come here, we can share information, but then like it's going to come down to action eventually. So where do we stand in terms of that?
And what constitutes consensus? Has there been any conversations?
Okay, not unlike a constitutional convention, you need delegates coming from all the different occupied groups. That is your strength. You're looking for leaders from every valley, every town, every factory, forming their own occupied groups. They will have delegates that come to such a session as this, so they can, so this GA can coordinate to the different individual ones. That's going to be your strength, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. And the leaders like Mark are needed to keep this at the top, serving the bottom. No. Organizers, not leaders.
I'd say we're all
organizers.
But one at a time so we can hear.
Point of information, clarifying question. That's point of process.
Thanks.
Yes. I know the word leader really strikes a negative chord with a lot of people within this group. Maybe it might be a better idea if you guys want to talk about it, like you said, to refer to things as organizers, and also not to rule out the possibility that those organizers could be rotating instead of, the idea that everybody in this group is a leader. We have to be all leaders, because if there aren't any leaders, nothing will ever happen. But it's just the fact that we all have to be leaders, so it's just a rule.
And what I think that, what I was going to say is actually pretty similar to that, because in Boston we've had to kind of face the reality that we're going to court at this point, and we've had to select people to represent us. They're not leaders, they don't have any decision-making authority. They're people that can go in and represent what we've decided that we stand for through our statements, our declarations, and they are not given any decision-making authority. Anything that's brought to them, they have to bring back to GA, and GA has to come to consensus on. So that's something that we can discuss as part of this, because quite honestly, if you want to maintain the horizontal part of the democracy, it's a lot of work. but it's also kind of unreasonable to expect that everybody all over the state is going to be able to come to each of these statewide assemblies to make the voice of the individual occupations heard. I'm not really.
Yeah.
I'm
I wanted to
going
give.
to have,
Okay.
can I let someone else speak who hasn't spoken about it yet?
Okay. I'd just like to suggest maybe what we want to do is each council, each Occupy movement organizes a committee whose function is to coordinate with the statewide General Assembly. And it's just a committee like any other committee that might carry out a function for the Occupy movement.
Liaison.
Would that fall under the outreach?
Since
I've got a director's.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be the role of each of the individual occupiers to create their representation to this area, whether or not that comes from a working group, as you suggest, right, or within just the general population of the community? So.
As in a Constitution Convention, you have delegates coming from the different states, in this case, Occupy groups. They pick maybe 3 people or 3 votes to come to a central location to have their meetings. Or a lot of this can be done online when we learn how to do it.
Yeah.
But the potential is unbelievable if we just work it out. Keep the strength at the bottom.
So point of process, I think we were trying to set 3 or 4 items for our agenda. We seem to be entering into the discussion and debate about the function of the state GA. I would really, propose that perhaps we use the next 5 or 10 minutes to finish our agenda, and then we create stacks to talk about each of these issues.
Somebody should keep time because it's really easy to lose track of time.
Right.
So if nobody else wants to do it, I will tell them when they go. And I'll just say 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Great.
When that happens.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything?
So let's finish the agenda, and then when we actually get into the actually working through the process of the General Assembly, I would love to have someone else be here and me sit down. So yes.
So under the agenda.
Like, wait, I got something to add to it. Yeah. Like they said right in the beginning, Founding Fathers, they said, this document does not completely reference the Constitution, the Declaration, and Independence and everything. You know, those documents, they said they're all incomplete, they need to be added to. There's an unsaid Constitution that needs to be taken into perspective. And, you know, maybe we could, you know, beat those monopolies with some new rules and get them out there somehow.
Yeah.
Question, just to clarify that. So are you saying basically that part of the function of the state PA is to come up with a declaration for?
We should protest for new laws or something.
That's
Like
action.
fundamental laws.
Yeah,
Okay, the plan for the systems of inclusion, does that go under the function of the state GA?
I think that's something that, I don't know, that's something that would both function at the state level if there was, state GA was formed and there was agreement on that. I think that is also something that probably would have to happen at the local level as well. So, but I'm happy.
I'm noticing a lot of silent talking. I think that we should all agree to leave one-on-one conversations after this. Because right now, we're all here. We rarely do this, but we can have side conversations whenever we want. Nobody should talk if somebody else is talking. It's basic respect.
Connect and stay connected, and so even if we don't get to all the things we go to, we can at least, continue online or something.
All right, so should we make a separate agenda item that is about staying connected, online, coordinating communication? Okay.
Just do it now, is what I was suggesting.
As a point of process, on the function, I mean, whenever people want to get to it, we don't, but, we're going to share the resources, and that's why, I didn't speak specifically about how we're going to integrate and coordinate, but basically today, the Occupy New Hampshire group that's been meeting in Manchester is going to share completely and on an equal level our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts, our web forum, so that's the first step we're going to take whenever you guys want to talk about that.
Actually, point of information?
Point of process.
When you say primary action, you're talking about the presidential primary? And
Yeah.
not, okay. We've used primary in a couple different ways, so I'm not always sure. So we have someone who's saying that we really need to talk about the actions for the Occupy the Republican presidential primary.
Would it be possible for people who are I don't know this area that well, is there a coffee shop nearby or something where we can go after this conversation and have that conversation? Because this conversation was, this whole meeting was designed to discuss the function of the GA and to get that together. But what you're saying is absolutely true. We do need to talk about the primary. It's not that far away. Is that something that people would be willing to do after this for those of you who are interested in talking about the primary? If we don't have time to today?
Can we go to the park?
It's nice on.
We have can we have one at a time, please? And someone had a clarification?
I think that the primary discussion, we should, the coffee afterwards, perhaps we can leave that for when we're all going to do this again, because this is going to have to happen again, especially if we're going to have events at the primary. Like, it is a short amount of time, but more than one of these has to occur between then and now. Beyond a coffee discussion.
Right.
A lot of that, like, we can agree about and give ideas online about this, like what candidates we wear and all that. We might have to go online because that could take a while for that kind of thing to happen.
Just about that. Just so people know, tomorrow you're meeting with Conway at 1 o'clock. I don't recall what...
Point of information, everybody's out of order. This is not working. You've got to focus on what we're here for. We came to define a parent organization. We aren't doing that. We're almost 2 hours into this meeting. We've lost 2/3 of it. We're still talking agenda. We're wrong.
Point of process.
You've got to structure a GA for this state of New Hampshire.
You got a point of process there.
Point of process. The other gentleman hadn't actually finished talking yet, so just basically.
We need to respect the facilitator.
Exactly.
The facilitator is in charge of this discussion. Please wait for her to point to you before you talk. Staff will be doing everything. Do you want someone to keep staff? Sure. Do you want me to explain what staff is?
Okay, so I'm going to keep staff. Staff gives your opportunity to come in. If you have something you want to say about something on the agenda, come up to me, I'll write your name down. When we get to the point in this agenda where we can actually have people come up and give what their perspective on whatever's being discussed, I'll call you up so that you can be on staff. I'm going to be sitting right here. If you want to get on staff, come put your name up, please.
We started to say these would be the 2 agenda items that we would talk about, and then someone proposed that yes.
Just call it working groups, last 15 minutes.
Working group last 15 minutes.
Other things emerge.
Other groups may pop up. Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question, please? Yes. We have a stack set up. What is the topic for the stack?
Anything that you want to discuss as part of any of these topics that are on the agenda. So if you have something that you would like to say about operations and transparency, that's something you would like to say to the whole group, then you would get on stack for it.
Okay. So anything that has to do with the agenda, if you want to speak on it, get on stack.
I'm still sort of making sure we've agreed on what the agenda is. Are we going to use the stack for agreeing on the agenda?
No, you should probably vote on whether or not you agree the agenda is.
Right.
I think we
I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so currently I think what the agenda plan is these items. Do you agree that that's what we're going to do now? Fabulous. But wait, there's more.
When you're voting as a GA, I'll just say it out loud. There's one other thing you might want to consider. When you're voting as a GA, there's a difference between taking a temperature check, which is this and this and this, and a vote. And a vote is something that would say, okay, we vote that this is what our agenda is going to be. We vote that this is what our statement of solidarity is going to be. We vote that this is what this is. The one thing, please let me finish. Okay, just let me finish, okay? When you have, the thing that you need to, that we probably should figure out is what percentage means consensus. There is, in Boston, we had it at 75%. That meant that 75% of people had to agree with whatever was being voted on, and in order for it to pass. So that's just something you might want to do it differently in New Hampshire. I don't know, but you should probably decide as a GA, as one of your first steps, what your percentage is that means something's passed when you're voting. When you vote for something, also, it's you raise a hand. It's not temperature check because you need to be able to count the vote and be able to tell what the actual percentage is. Okay. Well, he had a direct response.
No, I'm just asking one hand.
Oh, yeah, one hand. Yeah, you can't vote twice.
You talked about voting as a GA, and what GA are you talking about?
In whatever GA you're part of. So this right now is a GA.
GAs don't vote.
They certainly do.
Yes, they do. Yeah. They do. We have a GA in Concord. There's a GA in Manchester.
Yeah.
There's no GA at one unit yet.
That's what this is.
No, this is. I agree. We have not formed. We're talking about forming a parent or a supervisory or a formative GA. I'm talking.
Yep, you're right.
Respect the control here. I would like to say that until we form the structure of the so-called New Hampshire GA, statewide GA, whatever title you want to give it, we are not that GA yet.
Well, how can we even vote on whether we are a GA if we can't decide?
Well, again, you have to talk about
process.
it. You're bringing up business on the same subject. I am
debate, though. What we are talking about, this conversation, is exactly one. We are talking about the function, and that's what this debate is turning into. Sir, I mean...
But he's talking about voting as a GA.
Right,
how do you know how you can legally vote as a statewide GA? It's not everybody here that makes it.
That's the function. That's what we're about to discuss.
Yeah, that's what this is all
But don't start a vote.
Well, we're just voting on what the agenda is. It's nothing that's going...
Yeah, but that's not right. We haven't established this GA yet.
Yes, we have. We're here.
May I speak?
Mic check.
Mic check!
So we are sort of devolving it from our process that we've agreed on to one person talk and one person listen, and to make sure that each person has sort of an equal voice in the process. And what it looks like to me is that there are very strong feelings about staying connected and maintaining autonomy, that's one of the great challenges in any movement, and I think it's one of the great challenges when you're trying to change a system that tries to keep you isolated from each other. So this is the struggle. I mean, we're in this room having the same struggle that we're trying to have out in the world. So we're in it. It does seem like it's useful if we're trying to be very horizontally democratic to try to have lots of different people speak, so I'm going to try to work on that. And I'm going to just go back and make sure that we have agreement about what we're going to work on, and then we'll start forming a stack to work on it. Do you have a question?
I just have a very quick proposal. Can we, as a group, just take like 2 collective calming breaths?
Yeah. In fact, let's stand up and take those breaths.
Sorry.
I'm going to use the General Assembly process, and I would like someone who has led a General Assembly process to come and facilitate that.
Mark!
Hearing nominations from the floor.
Mark! Mark Provost.
Mark Provost!
Yes!
He's declining.
I don't want to be taken
I could give this a shot.
Do it. Nice.
Yeah. I'll give it a shot. Do whatever is needed to do to get this moving.
The structure of the process is driving here to this building and participating. And from here, basically, if anybody's not clear, I just wanted everybody to know, the first agenda topic, number 1, it says function of state GA. So if you have anything to contribute to that, please go up and put your name down there. And that's the first agenda topic, and anything that veers from that shouldn't be discussed.
Well, I mean, let's ask them what they want to do, because we have, I guess we have the option of having stack open for people to discuss it.
Well, we already have a stack.
You have the, yes.
We already began.
That's what I'm saying, is do we want to just bring people up to discuss these from that stack list? Or do we want to separate into groups and discuss with them? Stack?
It's okay.
Okay, so.
Clarifying question?
Is it appropriate to declare maybe a...
Okay, hold on 1 second. Mic check!
Mic check!
We all agreed?
We all agreed!
That we wouldn't speak?
That we wouldn't speak
while others are speaking?
while others are speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What were we saying?
Is it appropriate that we put a suggested time limit on the stack of 30 seconds, a minute, something like that?
That may be, hold on 1 second. Clarifying question?
Are you still the stack?
Kendra's now keeping stack.
Okay. Whoever's keeping stack, stand up. If you want to talk, go to Kendra.
So, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go on something. Point of process?
Point of process.
Do we want to keep time?
We were actually just,
Yeah.
I was just saying, should we vote on, let's get a temperature check. Do you want to vote on timekeeping? Do you want to vote on time limit? Okay.
How strict do we want to be on this? Do we want to go
Minute.
1 minute? 1 minute per person? So if you can concisely state your statement in 1 minute, you've got your position in stack, you come through, you state it.
Temperature check on 2 minutes?
2 minutes?
It could just be a temperature check on wrap it up, if people just start.
So I'm looking to see what they think.
2 minutes.
Depends on the topic, doesn't it? I mean, or what, or how important. I mean, maybe we could just do
We want you to concisely state what you say so that everybody gets a chance to say something and then
we
move
have
on.
symbols for wrap it up and...
Right, why don't we just use wrap it up? And if there's a general consensus wrap it up, then they're done.
Wrap it up tends to get pretty disrespectful when people don't agree with what you're saying. So it's better to have something timed so that you can say,
We're trying to just say what we think the function of the state GA is, and if we can't give a basic synopsis of what we think the GA is.
But I guess I would be unclear. Does your 2 minutes include rebuttals and?
We're not.
Okay.
We're not rebutting. We're just, you give us your appeal, and then we vote on the thing that seems to summarize most or condense. Open stack again on that. What do we want to do there? Or what do you, if you see potential flaws in this, what are the potential solutions?
I guess I expected us to have some sort of discussion, and just saying you have 2 minutes to make a point and then move on to the next person who has 2 minutes to make a point. Seems like it's not very much of a discussion.
that's why the suggestion of breaking up into smaller groups to have those discussions. I can tell you what we did in Boston, because we had a couple hundred people there, was split up into smaller groups and then have a representative from each group come up and give the key points, and then we kind of build consensus from there. I don't know that that's what you want to do here. I'm just telling you that's what we did there. Do you have your hand's up, but I don't know if you have a question or...
I have a question.
Okay.
It's just a statement. What is the purpose of organization and on what level should we organize ourselves?
That's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Well, I mean, I was just getting the point.
Yeah.
It's now been 5 minutes since Ken took the floor.
I'm thinking that if we vote on the 2 minute limit, that we can always do a temperature check to get, if somebody's saying something and we all want to hear about it, we can always do a temperature check to extend that time.
Okay, so...
So everybody agree with the potential of somebody gets the floor, they get 1 minute. If we agree with their statement, then we can extend their floor time with circle hands, no?
And we are interested in this thing. Next person having time.
Yeah.
Well, but the reality is we run out of time with staff very often because there's a lot of people there. They are not. Okay, so that sounds.
So let's start, Zach.
Just a quick clarification. It's not if we agree with what they say, we can continue. If
Right.
we're interested in what they say,
Yes.
we can continue. Yes.
Okay, so start.
Ben, stack number 1.
Right out of time.
So I think for right now we should just focus on the function of the GA because we're all having so much trouble with it coming together, and we need to have like kind of a basis and understanding of why we're here, how we're going to do this, what's going to be happening here, so we can be effective. I think one of the points for the state GA for me, and this is an idea that I'm throwing out, is that we're pulling our resources here, which is our people power, which is our ideas. This allows us to exchange ideas more freely and to come together for larger things, to let people know what's going on at this GA and this GA. So I don't think this needs to be a parent GA. I don't think this group necessarily needs to make decisions for all the other GAs that are going on throughout the state. I think what this needs to be is just, hey, I'm from Manchester, this is what's happening, this is what I'm going to do you want to come? Tell your GA about this. And then we can go back to our own general assemblies and say, this is what we're thinking about, would people be able to do this? Bring that information back to it. This is about pulling our resources, this is about having not just Manchester, not just Plymouth, not just Portsmouth. This is about all of us. I think we need to talk about how. I don't think we need to have delegates because I don't think this is a decision-making entity. Who is just us? Why? So I think this is just a place where we need to come and talk about pertinent things to the Occupy movement and to our particular part of the movement so we can be more effective.
John Paul?
I do think because this is a more diverse GA than the GAs in the other cities, that things can be set up here that can go to the other GAs, and that kind of a foundation for the other GAs.
Sherry?
What a question? A question?
Clarification. See. Derek?
John Paul?
Derek?
No, it's, you gotta get, if you have a question, I have to go to the staff?
She wants to get information from him.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. You said something, I don't remember what you said, but I wanted you to clarify what you meant by that.
I mean, there's going to be things that we're going to talk about here that can be in general for all assemblies as some type of structure. Because we do have a big general assembly here with everybody involved that's from the other occupations, so we can have a collective here to go to the other general assembly that we
Sherry?
Okay, so one of the accusations against Occupy is that we don't know our history. So just looking at the history of Occupy New Hampshire a little bit, we formed on, officially launched on September 28th. We launched as a statewide movement, Occupy New Hampshire. It was felt that it was really, really important at that time that everybody, you know, we're a small state, and that if we were going to have an impact, that we all work together as one state. And we did that. And we did our GA in Concord, Manchester, and then we did our GA in Concord, and we decided on an occupation in Manchester. And there was a lot of momentum, 250 people at Veterans Park on October 15th, and we launched that movement. Since then, things have changed, just like we're seeing them change at Wall Street and Boston and many of the other cities around. And New Hampshire is unique, where, as people have talked about, we're really geographically diverse. From the very get-go for me, town meetings, our whole local control. If you've been in the state a long time, you know that we're kind of local. So it always made sense to me eventually we'd see localities. We had Keene right from the get-go. As soon as Occupation New Hampshire started, Keene was already formed. We didn't know it because they weren't online yet, but so we have that diversity, and here we are. So for me, I think what's a really important part that we look at is how do we have something that can, you know, so what do we do now? We have this Occupy New Hampshire that has become more about what happens in Manchester. The GAs happen in Manchester. Then we have Occupy Keene, Occupy Concord, Occupy Plymouth, Occupy Littleton, and all these other things. And so I think part of what this has to be about is clarifying that.
We're running on time.
Okay.
So,
Do you want me to stop or? Okay. So in terms of the whole business of delegates and all of that, it seems to me that right now we're talking about forming some work groups and going forward. And we know, we've watched this over time. There's nothing we're going to decide today that locks any of us in forever. And so I'm suggesting that we form our overall, this is a statewide assembly, that we really look at our local autonomy, and that what we come together for is the information sharing stuff, the things that Ben's talking about, the things that Mark's talking about, the thing that Taylor was talking about in terms of the online stuff, have our work groups, and then over time, it may come to a point that we need to have it more formal with representation in other decisions.
Chris is on
Would you
deck.
like to?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll go.
Whoops. Sorry. There it is.
the topic is function of state GA.
Function of state GA. All right. At what level should we organize ourselves, and to what degree? That's my question. Any answers to that? I just asked the question. At what level should we organize ourselves, as the Occupy entity, and to what degree?
We have a direct response right here.
I feel that this is part of the process of what we are discussing. We are taking individual contributions from the people, and then we will form consensus on what our agreed understanding of the function of state GA is. So while you are asking this question, this is indeed what we are speaking about.
That's good, but it just seems really disorganized, and not everybody really gets the exactly what we are talking about. I mean, I know I did. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
To answer your question, part of the point of bringing all the occupations together in the state into a group like this is to be able to do direct action, which I know direct action is not what I'm talking about, but to answer what you're talking right now, the subject is for the Occupy the primaries. In Manchester, where we've had people, representatives from all over the state, it's still only been for different things, anywhere from 20 people to 100 people on a big march that we had a couple weeks ago. But when it comes to the primaries, that is a major opportunity for huge media coverage for the Occupy movement, being with all the presidential candidates and stuff here, that if we turn that 100 people into 500, into 1,000 people, that's a bigger message to give. That makes a bigger statement, and it shows people that it's not just 25 more people out there doing the same old thing.
A common message. We also need a common message, I think.
Point of process.
Time on that.
Well, wait a minute, before we do time, I have a question for him. So sticking with the function, and your question was, how do we organize? My question to you is, where do you live? Do you live near one of the existing local occupations? You don't have to tell me if you don't want, but...
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't want to go ahead and reveal too much information.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. And so,
BBIW.
yeah, so that's okay. But the point,
It's okay, though.
no, the point I wanted to make to you is, so find your local occupation. And that's, in terms of the function, we now have places, we have a lot of places around the state. I have to drive 25 miles to get to one, but find your local one. And then what we're doing here is talking about how do all of us from our local ones get together. And at the end, the action stuff you and Taylor were talking about, join one of the working groups. And then together we decide.
All right. The next person on
Yeah.
stack.
The next person on stack is Bob.
I think we have to focus on very simple.
Up front where you
Okay, I can. I don't want it, but I can. This walk up front is part of the clock, is it? But I think if we can think very carefully about what we're trying to do, and either you're giving authority to a central point, or you're giving authority to the individual GAs. I favor the individual GAs, and the only way you're going to do that is if you give an equal power to each GA at a summit. And you do that by saying every GA that's officially established gets, say, 3 votes. I don't care if it's 20 votes. I say an odd number so they can never be a tie. Okay? So we want to come together to support common action. That's not the problem. But if you bring power to the center, it's going to be diminished from the outlying GAs. And it's a simple physics fact, okay? But if you enable, if the main GA enables the local GAs, you'll have 3,000. If you just stay central, you'll have 300 within a year.
Questions? Do you have a question?
No, I think it was answered.
Okay, do you have a question? Yeah, I haven't heard anybody here say anything about wanting to create central power in the...
Well, but that's a natural function of what's happening here. We're coming together, we're forming a GA, we're taking votes, we're making decisions. Now, you're not giving authority to the local GAs to vote as a equal... I'm sorry, time's up.
No. Do you want to do, let's do temperature check. Do you want to keep this going?
Yeah, my point is, if you're trying to give authority to the local GAs, and that's where your real strength is. But if people have to travel 50, 75 miles, they won't come here. You'll get the closest people coming here, and it'll be a good crowd, but you're losing the outlying crowds. You want to give equal authority to them, so they can nurture and grow, and then we can form common action and come to an event.
Direct response right there. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a saying in AA, whenever 2 alkies get together, you've got an AA meeting. And the same thing goes for Occupy. Whenever you get 2 members of Occupy together, you've got a GA. That's what we're doing here. We got a GA because there's more than 2 of us. That's what we're doing. And it doesn't have any more power than the Keene GA. It's what we want to do. And we decide what we want to do here today.
But the problem there is, we got a small group making decisions that speak for the other group.
Nobody's making decisions for anybody.
Maybe go through, there's a lot of people with questions and comments for you. We need to let you hear all of them and then you can respond because we can't, there's still a lot of people on staff.
You had something to say?
I did. It seems like because you have so many people in one room and people are coming from all over the state, it might be a good opportunity to focus on those work groups where people from different geographic locations who maybe have talent in different areas could come together, and it could be more of a collaborative process, not so much of who has power or anything like that, but just kind of a situation where people can share ideas and really enhance the movement.
Okay, now Ben's been up for a while, and then you, and then you.
I just have a point of information. You're talking about empowering the local city movements and occupations. Those are the occupations, those are the people who have power. Those are the people. This organization, this gathering that we have today, we're discussing whether we want to give this, if this is any kind of entity. We're discussing if we want to give this any power. We already know that Occupy Plymouth, Conway, Manchester, those have the power. So I don't think that's even a discussion. I think we want to talk about if those entities want to come together into one larger statewide one to make any decisions at all. I think that's what we're discussing.
Okay, and then...
I understand that you're looking out for people that maybe didn't make it here today, but they can't make decisions here right now, and we have to, because we did come. So we keep them in mind, but we're not trying to put anything over them that they're committed to, but we still have to create a consensus about the function of here and now, and what we're going to create out of this. What are we going to walk out of here with? That's going to leave an impression for us all. That's what we're here for.
Good. That was good. Okay, so...
Is that a point
of... Statewide GA, it should be sharing information. It should not make decisions that should not have power. The reason you do it is because knowledge is power. That's why you do it. As far as where it meets, it should rotate at Occupy movements around the state. In terms of its membership, it should be up to 5 spokespersons selected by each local Occupy but the method of selection will be up to the local Occupy, with the understanding that there will need to be alternates in the case that someone can't come or is not available or sick or what have you. The local Occupy also will need to identify a method to replace someone in case that person drops out or for whatever reason is not working out satisfactorily. The other thing, that point that hasn't been made but I think needs to be made, is the meeting should be open. The voting members, if there are any votes, which there may not be, will be the official spokespersons, but the meeting is open to all.
Okay, we've got 1 minute, and then you want to extend this?
I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, thank you. Standing facilitating, I don't get to comment on things, so if we can consolidate the information, works for me. Okay, do we have the next person on set?
Jason?
So this is a good time for me to jump on that, 'cause I agree with what you had to say. Use spokes, and each General Assembly, say it's Keene or Manchester, can determine what power that spokesperson has. Maybe that person's representative. Maybe that person has to consult back with their occupation, or and you can also rotate in and out who the spokespeople are. But these are the people that can also come along, let's say from Keene, and then they can discuss and make decisions. And as far as decisions, my preference would be just like solidarity in certain areas, but I would like for most of the power to remain with the occupations on the local level.
Mark, Keith?
Hey, I'm going to talk like Micro Machines here. I thought like it's getting to be 2:30 and we were going to do the committee meetings, and I thought the function of the state GA, one of the most important things that we come together again, because obviously we came together today, even with 3 hours we started, you know, everyone wants to eat. So I would think that as a group right now, I'd like to propose collaboratively that we choose a date. I would like to say 2 weeks now, because this primary is massive. We're going to have the global and national media here, and one function is that we may not be able to create like a core message of our overall movement for all eternity, but I think on the primary, you know, before we even get any planning done, we're going to have to do this all over again in 2 weeks, and we're going to need maybe as much time, and we probably should leave this, you know, so I would just...
Is that a proposal then?
Yeah, that's a formal proposal for a date and time that people...
There's a point, hold on 1 second. Okay, so in the process, if a point of process comes up, that kind of trumps everything else to find out what the point of process is.
So what we did was we just took one of the issues that isn't on the agenda and just moved it on.
No, the function, I think it just wasn't, I don't think it was umbrellaed under, but, you know, I don't know, would people here agree with the fact that one of the functions of this state GA is to do this again, considering we don't have much time? And I would just like to nail that down.
At the end of it, we were going to set a date. I thought now we were going over.
We're doing it now. Some working may leave.
Yeah,
We're losing people every couple minutes, so it might be a good idea to do this.
So does anyone want to throw a date? What's Saturday? What's the date for Saturday?
17th. That's 2 weeks. Today's the 17th.
Do you have something?
I'd like to propose, in addition to this, that before that time frame, perhaps in your individual occupations, you have something during the week for people who can't make it to these weekend meetings to be able to participate and have their voice be heard there. Further, I would suggest that if you have any proposals that you want to prepare, you have them prepared before the next GA, and we can build it into the agenda for that GA.
He's